Hi there, it's Mr. Clark. Welcome to lesson MED.4.2 on some notational issues in modal rhythm. So when we were looking at modal rhythm in the previous lesson, we looked at its simplest possible form. If you took it to a lab and studied it and brought it down to its essence, that's what we were looking at. In practice, it's messier. So here are some things that you might run into that might cause issues when trying to figure out rhythmic notation in modal rhythm. First thing, repeated notes. If you have two notes of the same pitch in a row, you can't put them next to each other in a ligature because that's not how ligatures work. So all these are examples in mode 1. And as a reminder, mode 1 should start with 3 and then have a bunch of 2s. Here, the first two notes are the same. So that isn't a ligature of 3, it's 1 and then 2s. There's no a mode that's 1 and then 2s, so we assume that that's meant to go together and become a 3. Da, 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 da. Here, the kind of the reverse sort of thing, where you have the second and third notes repeated, and there are different ways that people could deal with this. You could go da da da, or sorry, da 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 da, or you could make it 2 and then 3 and then go into 2s. Da 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 da, and then if you kept going in 2s, we would see, oh yeah, that's repeated. That makes sense. Here, the first one is successfully a group of 3, but then the next one can't be a group of 2 because it's 2 of the same note. So instead, we have 3, 1, 1, and then follow it with 2s. Here we have kind of a group of 3, and then 2, and then 2. And here they've written the same rhythm where it's 2 and then 3, and then it would be followed with a bunch of 2s. And either way, we have da, 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 da. Sorry. Da, 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 da. So that's some ways that you might see repeated notes dealt with, and you still have to somehow interpret the mode. So second thing that might cause issues would be the plica. You may remember we kind of talked about liquescent neumes back in MED.4.1, and we did some kind of hand waving and said, we don't really know what this meant. When the early neumes transitioned into this square notation, the liquescence transformed into a symbol known as the plica, which was a vertical dash attached to a note. Depending on the ligature, it could be a single dash on the last note. So here, normally, the neume would be just that. But here, we've added a dash. Here we've added a dash. Here we've added a dash. Here we've added a dash on neumes where they don't belong. The other way to do it, which is more common moving forwards in history, is to have a plica written after a ligature, just a tiny note. Looks like a modern-day grace note, but in this case, it is something different. So the plica itself is an extra note that's inserted between the note that it's attached to and the next note. The direction of the dash indicates whether it's above or below the written note. Scholars disagree on this. My position is that the plica does have a definite rhythmic value, fitting into the rhythmic value of the note that it's attached to. So here is an example of a clausula on the word go. It's in 3 different parts. Here's a part up here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's on a 5-line staff. They're all, no, this one's 5 as well. This one's only 4. So 5, 5, and 4-line staves. We ignore this. That's part of what was happening previously. That's a different piece. We ignore this. That's the end of the previous piece. So we're looking at line, line, line. Go is kind of in the middle of this tenor line, which is a little weird. That's fine. So here's a clearer transcription of what we're looking at. So in the modern transcription, we're taking these 3 lines and we're making them make sense together. So this top line, we have 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. So we're going to assume, because there's a repeated note, that that's 3. So we're going to say 3, 2, 2, 2, 2, and that would put us in mode 1. And the next bar does the same thing, 3, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. Let's see, that also makes sense here, 3, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 3, 2, 2. Great. And then here we have only groups of 3, so that's going to put us in mode 5 for the tenor. So when we line these up, do we have any plicas? Let's look through. We have one here. We have one here. Yeah, that one doesn't belong. So the top line, we have and now, without the plica, we'd have with the plica, so we add an extra note below the written F. So we add an F, E, F, that fits into its rhythmic value. Going on, that would indicate the end of an ordo. So we go on, we insert a rest to fill the beat. We go on. I'll sing down an octave. And let's scan through here, see any errant dashes. Oop, there's one. There's one. There's one. Don't expect one on the bottom of the torculus. There's one. There's one. Some more plicas in this bottom. Let's see. So we have plica plica plica. Interesting that that wasn't in the Modal transcription. Because yeah, that's a plica over there. That might be my error, or well, it's my error one way or the other. So based on this notation, I would say da 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 or da 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 fit in there, and then the tenor just fits in. So together, these three lines. I'm not going to worry about that. The rhythmic notation is the point here. So that was thing number 2. Thing number 1 was repeated notes. Thing number 2 was plica. Now we have extensio modi. So rhythms in a mode are often modified. Sometimes a note is extended mode, into the space normally occupied by the next note. This is particularly common at the end of an ordo, like we kind of saw up here. So here we have da 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 da. Normally we would expect da 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 da, but that doesn't feel very satisfying. We like to end on a beat, so we extend this note into the space of where that one would normally go. Da 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 da. Because normally we would expect a quarter and an eighth here. We turn this into a dotted quarter and place that last note on a beat. Same idea here. Da 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 da. Here we have da 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 da. Example in mode 2. Another example in mode 2. Da 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 da. Fractio modi would be the opposite. We're breaking the mode or turning into a fraction. We're making it smaller. The plica does this. That's one way to express fractio modi, where normally this would be a quarter and an eighth, but adding the plica turns it into 3/8. We've broken this quarter into 2/8. This can also be done with ligatures. So here we have a basic da da da, and then we have da 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 da, da 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 da. Sorry, da 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 da, da 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 da. So again, this is showing the preference for ending something on a beat as opposed to a weird ending it on a da instead of a beat. So we're assuming that we're in mode 1 from other context clues. Also, we have like 3, 2, 3, 2. And the way that this last noom is in a group of 3 is indicating the fractio modi here. So we would expect da 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 da, but that's an awkward ending. Da 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 da. That indicates that we really want that to end on the beat. So both extensio modi and fractio modi modify the number of notes that we'll see in a ligature, and it's not always clear which one is intended. So if we have 3-2-3 like we do here we've interpreted it as fractio modi. Da 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 da. You could also interpret it as extensio modi. Da 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 da. Both ways we're ending on the beat, but here we've ended one beat later than this one. There aren't clear rules here. Try to use context clues. Try to figure out how the different parts line up with each other. In pieces with multiple upper parts, usually the 2 upper parts will try to match how their ligatures line up as much as possible. Use that to your advantage. Sorry, I don't have more specific advice. One of the last things we're looking at is R, conjecturae, or singular conjectura. It's a ligature followed by some diamond-shaped notes. So we've seen this one where it's just da da da, and then, but you could have more. You could go da 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 da. The standard of making interpretation is that the last note is going to be a longa, the penultimate note is a brevis, and all the preceding notes fit into a longa. So looking at this, we would transform it into this. Last note is going to be a longa, note before it is going to be a brev, and then everything else that we just smash it in. Da, da, da. And this transcription is off by a note. That's weird. Is that C, D, E, F? And that starts on a G. Weird. I'll look into that. But again, the rhythm is what matters. Da 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 da. Then da 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 da. Then that's right at the I. That's weird. Interesting. Then the last piece of advice would be the primary consonances are the unison, octave, fifth, and fourth in this era. The third and augmented fourth are occasionally allowed as consonances, but seconds, sixths, and sevenths are always dissonances. We'll look more at consonants and dissonance in section MED.4.2, but this can help guide figuring out rhythm if you're dealing with polyphony. The main beat should be primarily consonances. There are always some exceptions, particularly if it immediately resolves. Might help, might not. So when you're working on transcribing a polyphonic work, it's usually best to start with the tenor. Tenors that are all single notes or in groups of 3 are often in mode 5. Otherwise, observe the rhythmic note of the tenor, figure that out, and then you base the upper parts on the tenor. The tenor is usually the easiest to figure out. But there are also many cases that are still ambiguous, so the same piece might be transcribed different ways by different scholars. The best way to improve at this point is just to try doing it and compare your results with people who know what they're doing, keeping in mind that the people who know what they're doing don't always agree with each other. So, I'm sorry for complicating your life, but go and try your hand at this, and I will see you next time.